Hello and welcome to Open Line. I'm Starlene Stringer. Well, they did it again. Irving police say they have achieved another record low crime rate. The 2012 drop was nearly 7%. Well, Police Chief Larry Boyd is here to tell us how it happened, and we definitely want to thank you for joining us today to talk about that. But Chief, before we get there, we all know that a lot of people are really concerned these days about school safety. So because of that, let's start by talking about school resource officers. What's their role?
You know, we have school resource officers in Irving in every middle school and every high school, and their role is pretty wide-ranging, but of course one of the things that we want to do is partner with the school district to ensure that we're doing everything we possibly can to create the best learning environment, the safest learning environment. And so, you know, the role sort of changes depending on what the issues are for each of the schools, but the key thing there is that we're constantly working with the school district to understand what's the larger perspective as it relates to school security and how do we best plug into that to play that role.
Wonderful. And now let's get to those numbers. We'll talk a bit more about that stuff later, but getting to those crime statistics, 7% decline overall. What types of crimes saw the biggest reduction?
The biggest reduction we saw was in burglaries, and we're really pleased with that because we've actually seen a couple of years now that burglaries have gone down. A few years back, that was one of our challenges that we had a particular focus on is working to reduce residential burglaries, both single-family homes and apartment burglaries. And you know, those are certainly, any kind of crime is bad, but when someone is the victim of a burglary, that's such a personal intrusion on them that we want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to address that issue. So we had a real focus on that. We had a 20% reduction in burglaries this year. Wow,
that's huge. You guys, yes, I'm sure, are proud of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. The officers worked very hard on it. And of course, you know, that's one of those things that we have to work a lot with the community. You don't do these kinds of things just with the police department. You have to have a lot of people working hard, and I think burglaries is one of the places where that was reflected.
When you have numbers that big, like 20% as you just mentioned, what do you say to the critics, those who are skeptical, thinking those numbers can't continue, we can't see declines like this continue?
Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been possibly in that crowd. You know, we've now seen 8 years of reduction in a row, and so, you know, when you go into a string of successes like this, it's difficult to predict, you know, how long this is going to carry out, and you know, which years you're going to have successes, and so. You know, one of the things that we have, after, you know, about 4 years into it, we quit thinking about, well, can you do this again? Because obviously we found out, yes, it can happen again. Right. So what we start focusing on every year is where are the opportunities compared to what happened last year? What's the recent trends with crimes? What opportunities present the best places for us to focus on? And then we do that going forward. And that's what we did. We've done this every year now, and that's what we plan to do this year. What strategies work best? What trends are we seeing? Where can we apply our resources best? And how can we help build the community so that we have a lot of people working on this issue?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned community. Let's talk about the initiatives that have helped lead to this success, like the Beltline Northgate initiative. Tell us a little bit about that, and why were they chosen? Why was that area chosen?
Right. The Beltline Northgate initiative was an initiative that we started last year because of what I just talked about. We recognized a trend and an issue in that particular part of Irving. And so what that is a team of officers who are working a lot with the businesses and a lot with the apartment management in that particular area, because that's where we saw the major problems. There's a concentration of apartments there that have gotten a little bit older. There's a lot of businesses. If you've been in the Beltline Northgate area, it's really concentrated, and so that presented some opportunities there for criminals to be kind of working in that area and being, you know, less than obvious in some cases. And so we put a team in there to really get in and find out what are the root causes and some of the issues, and some of those turned out to be people that were kind of going under the radar in terms of living in the area, maybe visiting with people who lived in the apartment complexes, and so we really started to focus on that. And that team's been very successful. It hasn't just been them, it's been all the people that work with them. Seen over a 50% reduction so far in that crime in that particular particular area that we have the focus. So that's really, you know, the kind of result we wouldn't have predicted going in,
Sure.
but something that we've been very satisfied with.
I bet, and that's a huge number once again. So do you plan to continue that initiative once it's been that successful? Do you keep it going, or do you change and move to another area? How does that work?
Right. Well, we're always looking at where our resources provide the best opportunity for success, because, you know, just like any organization, we have limited access to resources. And so for that particular area, we do plan to continue it through this year. Anytime we go into an area like what we've done with Beltline Northgate, our number one objective is to address whatever the root cause was that has created the circumstance to allow the crime to increase in the first place. We don't feel like we've completely done that yet, and so we'll continue to work on that. One of the things that we've done when we put teams in, like the problem-solving team, is as we feel like we have addressed the root cause, then we start to develop an exit strategy. Because what we want to do is to put something in place that allows that to continue even as we move the resources on to something else. Of course, there will always be a residual team, or, you know, we'll have something that the beat officer will be responsible for, so we never, you know, completely leave an area. All parts of Irving are covered. But we'll develop some type of an exit strategy to try to ensure that the successes will continue even as we move on to something else.
I see. Now let's talk a little bit more about the problem-solving team. You've mentioned them a couple of times, and we've had you talk about it in past shows, but there are still people who aren't familiar with it and what the problem-solving team actually does. So can you tell us more about it?
Right. Well, and you know, the problem-solving team was the forerunner even to the Beltline Northgate initiative, which was developed a lot like that particular concept. Problem-solving team is a team of officers that we have where we identify these kinds of particular problems, and we have them use what we call the SARA model. Stands for Scan, Analyze, Respond, and Assess, to ensure that we understand all of the issues before we go in and start just, you know, taking some kind of action that may not really be addressing the problem, could be just a symptom of the problem that we address. And so we use that tool to define what the plan is for the particular area. And then they'll follow through on that plan. So far, the problem-solving team they started on Tudor Lane, which was a very successful project, 70% reduction in crime overall. And a lot of changes there and a lot of things that addressed the root causes that we had. Then they moved on to the Walnut Hill area, 50% reduction in crime. You know, getting some of the issues resolved there had to do with working again with management for the apartment complexes, dealing with some of the known offenders that were in the area. That is an area that they had a lot of success. Currently, they're working in the southeastern portion of Irving. A very different model that they're having to use, because no longer they're dealing with, you know, concentrated apartment complexes and things, but it's businesses. If you know that part of town, there's a lot of single-family residential.
For those who aren't familiar with that part of town, what give them kind of location, something they may know that might let us know where Southeast Irving is.
Very good point. Southeast Irving project that we have going on essentially is from the Britain area, going towards the east part of town to Loop 12, and then essentially from Irving Boulevard south to Shady Grove, and even a little further south than that in some parts of it. So it's just kind of the traditional southeastern portion of Irving. And it's a very mixed variety of issues that are going on there. So a lot different from the other two projects that they've had before.
So how's it going for them so far?
Well, they've seen some reduction. They have seen some reduction. The challenge that they're having there has to do with the fact that it's harder to fix the problem and then move on, because there's so many different issues that they're dealing with. And so we're still working on that particular area to determine what is the best exit strategy. How do we know that once we move to something else, that we will have that problem not pop back up?
Good point. And of course, everybody knows that with crime rate going down, there are still things you can do to help make a difference. So let me ask you, what can residents do to help the crime rates continue to drop?
Well, the number one thing that we always tell communities, our neighborhoods, is that you need to work together. So you have a lot of people watching out, and you have a lot of people that are understanding what are the underlying causes in my particular part of Irving where I live that create the opportunities for crime, and then help each other to do something about that. Now the best way to do that is to form a neighborhood watch group. You can do that if you live in a single family home neighborhood. You can do that in an apartment community. And so people can go to our website. There's a lot of information on our website. There are all kinds of new technology tools coming online now. There's new tools where where neighborhoods can create their own website so that people can monitor their particular areas.
Really?
and be able to update each other.
That's
So there's
pretty cool.
lots of new opportunities, ways in which we change to use social media, change in using technology to help people connect, because we know that people's lives are changing, and they're not they may not be sitting on the front porch like we traditionally think of neighborhoods.
Exactly.
And so we have to be able to find ways to take advantage of that.
Well, let's go over some specific areas then, like for car burglaries, let's say. What can we do to help reduce those?
Oh, that's an easy one. I'm glad you brought that up. The number one thing that people can do is not leave valuable items visible in the car.
And name some of those items, because sometimes people may not think it's valuable to them, or they think, oh, it's just a cell phone, or it's just $5, or it's just $1.
Right.
Those types of things.
I read these reports, and I'm amazed sometimes at what people leave in their cars. Cell phones, laptops, a couple of big items.
Wow.
Purses, suitcases, things that give appearance for being valuable. Even things like your day planner. Sometimes your day planner looks like it's a laptop case. Oh. Or sometimes your day planner contains credit cards, and people know that. And so they'll go in to get that just to see if there's something valuable in there. There's a lot more things in cars now than there used to be. If you think about it, just about every car nowadays will have some change, and maybe $4 or $5 worth of change, and maybe some bills in there.
Right.
Well, if a person can do 4 or 5 cars like that, they've made $25 that night just by doing that. And another thing, in addition to leaving valuable stuff in there, is leaving them open. We will see sometimes where the
doors unlocked, you mean?
Doors unlocked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We will see trends sometimes where they will go through an entire neighborhood and just walk the neighborhood and just try the doors that are open and find 15, 20 cars parked in the street or parked in the driveway that aren't locked. They'll go, once it's unlocked, then they'll go in and see, is there change in there? Are there CDs in there? Whatever else is in there. Over half of our burglaries would be prevented if we would just stop doing that.
Wow. That's a huge amount. That's
Yes.
a huge number. And when you talked about, I want to go back a little bit and talk about some of the things you mentioned, because when you talk about like a purse, oftentimes women think, oh, well, I'm just going to run in the store, or I can put it under the seat, or I can open my trunk and put it in. Is it even safe to do that, or do these criminals see you put it in your trunk and they go in there and get it?
Especially during Christmas and in the shopping seasons like that, people watch for that sort of thing. So if you're going to go from store to store and you're going, from different areas, and you're going to put something in the trunk, do it before you get there. Do it for when you're going from this store to that store. Make sure you put it in the trunk, and don't do it once you get there and park, and then get out, put your stuff in the trunk, and then leave. Because if someone's watching, they just watched you put it in the trunk. And so that's a better place, is to have it in the trunk, but just be cautious about when you do it.
Good advice. What about home burglaries? How can we help prevent those?
There's a variety of different causes as we see these trends occur and everything. One of the things that people need to be careful of is who their kids are associating with and who they're bringing home. A lot of our burglaries are people that the family knows.
Uh-oh.
And
people heard that, they're going, oh my goodness.
Exactly. That's so just being aware of who's coming into your house.
Sure.
and the people that are kind of coming and going. That is a big help. Of course, you can go on our website and get a lot of tips about making sure that you have good locks and window locks and your shrubbery trim so that you can see in the house. You just don't want to present opportunities. Things like keeping your gate locked on your stockade fence so that a burglar can't get into the backyard and then have plenty of time to find a way to get into the house.
Sure.
Those are things that you need to do. Marking your property with some sort of identifiable code like your driver's license is helpful, because if someone then goes and pawns the property, you have that identifier on there, and that pawn shop is required to report that. If there's nothing on there, then it's oftentimes difficult difficult to know. I mean, there's so many things pawn. Things like that. And of course, burglar alarms are good. Making sure you have a good quality burglar alarm is important, and making sure that you know how to operate it is important so that we don't answer so many false alarm calls that we answer.
I can imagine that's bad for you.
That's right.
Something that I saw on a recent report, a recent story, and I'm not sure what city it was, but something that just really stood out to me, and I'm curious to know if you've had to deal with that a lot, is that some people park outside of the garages, of course, or maybe they don't have a garage and they park outside, but they leave they'd have to have a garage to have a garage door opener, but they leave the garage door opener in the car. And then burglars are going in these cars, taking out the garage door opener and just going in their house and robbing them. Is that something that's pretty common?
That's a great tip. Don't do that. We haven't seen a lot of that trending in Irving, but of course we've seen some of it. And that's just another opportunity that you've left there for someone to be able to gain access to your home, even if they just take your garage door opener and then use it some time later if you didn't change the code to get in. So, anything that you can do to keep from giving easy access to your home is important, and that's certainly one of them.
Oh, we don't want to do that.
Right.
Well, there's many ways the citizens can get involved, and I know some of you watching right now may be thinking, hey, I would love to be a part of the Police Academy, and I know they have an upcoming class, there's an upcoming opportunity to get involved. So tell us about that, Chief.
Right. We have the Irving Citizens Police Academy. We've been running that for a number of years. It's a very popular program, and people find out a lot about policing. It's amazing, most people, understandably, what they know about policing they get from television. And I hate to burst anyone's bubble, but that's not a real accurate view of policing. And so they're able to kind of see this from A to Z, and we cover all aspects of policing and bring in people from different parts of the department to talk about what it's like to be a patrol officer and the kind of training that they go through. Crime scene investigation, detectives, our tactical unit, our canine, everything that we do. And there's even an opportunity at one point during the training where they get to drive a police car. They get to go out on the range and see what it's like to learn how to shoot the weapons and everything about policing. It's very eye-opening for people. And one of the things that I hear, because I go to every one of the academies, I go to the last class and have an opportunity for feedback from them, and people always tell me what a great deal they learned and how it's changed their view of policing. But more than that, I think it creates for us opportunities to partner more with the community. They know more about what it is that we do, what our jobs are, what the challenges are, and they can learn more about what it takes for them to be a responsible citizen so that they can do a lot of these things that we're talking about to help make our job easier.
What are some of the misconceptions? What do people think is going to happen when they go and participate in this course? I mean, you're getting this feedback from them at the end of every course. So what do they tell you they learned differently than what they thought?
You asked that. It's interesting. One of the biggest misconceptions I found that was out there, and it's certainly, we run a Spanish language Citizens Police Academy as well. So we do an English language and a Spanish language. And especially in the Spanish language class, one of the biggest misconceptions that caused us not to get as many people to participate is they thought they were going to be police officers. They thought they were training and qualifying to do some level of a job of a police officer. And that's not the case at all. It's a familiarization. It's an opportunity for us to form partnerships. But that's one of the misconceptions. I think that the other thing is that is people had a misconception of what a job is like, what a police officer does on a daily basis, and the variety of things that they interact with. Because if you think about what we have from a television perspective, is it gets very focused. They'll work on a couple of crimes and they'll have all this high tech stuff they do, and it's all fun and everything. But generally, especially a patrol officer can answer 20 different calls in a day, and each one of those will be taking him in a completely different direction than the others.
So it's very eye-opening.
It is.
How popular are the classes? You mentioned different classes you have, and then you offer them in Spanish and so forth. And so, how popular are they?
They're very popular. I'm always amazed at people's willingness to commit. 11 weeks, either on a Monday or a Tuesday night, depending on which night they sign up for, to spend from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. with us learning about policing. But every class that we get will be full. and we continue to do it, year after year. So it's a really popular class, and so people who want to participate need to sign up pretty quickly because they fill up pretty fast.
And how do they go about doing so?
You can go to our website. There's information on our website about how to get signed up for that, and even if you miss this one, you can stay plugged in there and find out when the next one will be available.
For those who don't know the website, it's just the City of Irving website, and they can find the police department online.
Right. There's a couple of ways you can get to our website. You can go to irvingpd.com, or you can just go to the City of Irving website at cityofirving.org, and then you can link to the police department on that website.
And is there a fee for it?
There is no fee, so it's great entertainment. It's a very eye-opening, it's interesting, and it's free.
Free is always good. And as far as the benefits, it's just getting the experience of learning, but they also learn how to protect, like you were mentioning today, some of those tips, not leaving your purse and money out in your car or leaving your house open to burglars. What else do they learn?
Well, of course, they learn all of that. One of the big benefits that I see coming out of our police academy is the connection that they have with the city and connection they have with the police department, and the relationship that they build that in many cases continues over time. A lot of our Citizens Police Academy graduates go on to participate in our ICOPS program, the Irving Citizens on Patrol program. And it's a prerequisite to, if you're going to join ICOPS, you have to go through this police academy first to do that. And so, one of the things that both we and the people who participate get out of this is this continuing relationship so that they can stay, plugged into being a better citizen, somebody who gives back to the community and finds ways to do that through the police department.
Very nice. And I know there's a new program too called RAD. It's for women. Tell me more about it.
We've only been doing our RAD class, which is rape aggressive defensive-ness. I think is I never remember what the RAD stands for, but essentially it's a women's defensive class, and it gives an opportunity for us to help teach some of the core skills. One of our first classes our mayor attended to go through it, and the feedback from her was that it was a really good class, and so it's something that's taught by we have more than one officer involved, but it's certainly one of our primary instructors is one of our female officers, and it gives us an opportunity to help people develop those skills to know how to avoid situations, but if they find themselves in a dangerous situation, what can they do, and what are some very simple basic things that they can know and use.
Wonderful. And something else when it comes to crimes is just being aware, knowing that they actually exist around you, because if it doesn't happen to you, sometimes you don't even know that it occurred at all unless you see it on the news. So citizens can go about getting that information just by going to your website and pulling up something called crime reports. How does that work?
Right. This is a tool that we started about 18 months ago now. So it's a partnership we have with a company called crimereports.com. And so through our website, then, and actually it's on the page that they open when they first go in there, they can click on the crimereports.com, select a specific area that they're interested in, their neighborhood, for example, and then you can check, and you can change the date parameters if you choose to go back and look and see, okay, over the last 3 days or over the last 7 days or maybe over the last 2 months, what kind of crime has occurred in my particular neighborhood. So it's a really good tool for crime watch groups, and so they can have their own little meetings and say, looks like we've been having a problem with car burglaries, and discuss what are the things that we can do as a neighborhood to try to prevent whatever kinds of crimes that are going on. So yeah, that's just again, just go to our website. It's very simple to use
and easy to sign up.
You don't even have to sign up for it. It's you just go to our website and start working it.
All the information's there.
Absolutely.
And other than having it for the actual crime groups that you may have, if you're just an individual wanting to get that information, what's the value in having it?
Well, the value is for you as an individual, again, wanting to be familiar with what's happening in your area.
Sure.
You may be looking for what kind of crime is occurring right here, so that if you have a child that's walking to school, or if you have a particular odd time at which you have to go to work or something, you may want to know and be familiar with what kind of things are happening right around my neighborhood.
Sure. Okay, and switching topics a little bit, Chief, earlier you talked about a focus on offenders, but on the other end of that spectrum, there's also a focus on children. Tell me about some of the programs the department has. Let's start with POW.
Right. We have a long list of things. We
bet.
could take the rest of the show and talk about this alone. Our Police Athletic League, we've got some very dedicated officers who run the Police Athletic League. And traditionally, that program has been around for a number of years. Traditionally, it was boxing, and it was a great program and a great tool for us to have interactions with youth in Irving. But not everybody was interested in boxing, and so over the last few years, the people who run that have expanded that and started bringing in different types of programs. One of the primary things that kids have an opportunity to do if they join up is to just participate in some physical fitness activities. And we know the way things are today, that's really important to get kids up and moving and all.
Sure.
And they do it in large groups, and they actually have fun doing it, so that's one of the things. We have a wrestling program involved with that now. We have an urban outdoors program where kids have an opportunity to do a lot of stuff that they may have never had the opportunity, like kayaking or rock climbing or doing some hiking and do some fossil hunts, just a whole variety of activities where they work with police officers to have that positive interaction, but also have the chance to do stuff that's really interesting to them. So the program's grown quite a bit, and I was down there just the other day, and 30 or 40 kids showing up every evening to come and participate.
And I know you have another group too called the Police Explorers. Tell me about them.
Right, Police Explorers is a partnership that we have through the Boy Scouts, and it works similar to that in that they come to a meeting every week. It also is run by some of our officers who help these kids go through a variety of different programs. I would say it's similar to the police academy in that they learn different things that police officers do, but they learn them a little more in depth, and then they have competitions that they go to. And our Police Explorer program always does very well. In fact, they were recognized by the City Council a few months back by all of the first place trophies that they brought back from the last competition. But their competitions will involve things like building searches and traffic stops and different tactics and skills that a police officer has to know that they learn in their program. Now the benefit for them is, in addition to having the structured environment and opportunity to interact with police officers, is that they may have an opportunity now to see if law enforcement is the kind of a career that they'd like to pursue once they get out of high school.
Good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Right.
And something else I want to talk about before you go is, because we're running out of time, but is your initiative that you had. Officers were very involved in catching drunk drivers over the New Year's holiday. What are some of the various initiatives you have to prevent that?
Well, in our strategic plan this year, we took a particular emphasis on drunk driving and dealing with it. So, the approach that we traditionally have, and we still have, is enforcement. And so we have our no refusal weekends and things that we do to heighten awareness. And not only are you able to enforce the law with those that we find driving drunk, but you're also able to bring about attention to make people think twice about that. But we also wanted to couple that with education and trying to make an impact with people who are in the process of growing into their driving years, so that they will have a different view and maybe a deeper understanding of the dangers of drunk driving. So we participate and do programs with Irving high schools, and there's a program called Shattered Dreams by which we go out and help them understand the consequences. I mean, sometimes that's part of the problem with drunk driving is people don't think it through beforehand. It's the afterward consequence, if they'd have known about, might have made a different decision. So we try to help them see those consequences early on, and maybe to make a difference for them.
Wonderful. And so that's the way you said you're working with young people, you go out to the schools, so you're helping in so many ways. In addition to what you guys have done so far this year and in the past, obviously, to prevent drunk driving, you working with the kids, doing so many things. You talked about all the groups with PAL, and we appreciate that. We talked about a lot over the past few minutes, how to protect our homes, the cars, all that information, and thank you, because we're running out of time, but I know you got to get a lot in, and I wanted to congratulate you before the show ends on a successful year again and getting those numbers down. You guys have definitely got to feel proud about that.
Right. And so it's 8 years in a row. And if you look at it over that time span, it's over 40% reduction in crime over those 8 years. So that's a significant thing, something Irving can really be proud of. And it's not just the police department. That's the community working together with the police department to make these things happen.
So what are you guys doing over there to celebrate? Officers just continuing to keep it going?
That's the intended plan, is to keep it going. You know, every year we used to say, I wonder if we can do this another year. Now we plan to do it another year.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here, Chief.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I'm Starlene Stringer. Please be sure to join us live on Thursday, February 14th, Valentine's Day at 1:30 p.m. for our next edition of Open Line. We'll get you ready for severe weather season with the Office of Emergency Management. Now, if you have questions before then, email them to ictn@cityofirving.org or connect with us on Facebook, and we'll get answers for you on our next edition of Open Line. We'll see you then.